Well, this week we've been looking at how party leaders are promising to address infrastructure needs right across the country. Climate change and the environment are perhaps the most talked about issues on this campaign trail, and cities are starting to do their part for the environment by incorporating what's known as green infrastructure. Jennifer Court is the Executive Director of Green Infrastructure Ontario. She's our guest in studio this morning. Good to have you here with us.
Thank you for having me.
For those who are not familiar with the phrase green infrastructure, give us an example of some of the projects that we can identify with.
Yeah, so the definition of green infrastructure is one that a lot of people aren't familiar with. So maybe I'll just start with this sort of high level and then give some specific examples. So we talk about green infrastructure as the natural vegetative systems and green technologies that together provide a multitude of benefits from environmental, economic, health, and social. Pretty high level.
Right.
So really there's a range of natural to human-made systems. On the natural side, it can be anything from forests and urban forests, wetlands, parks, and the soils that support them. Enhanced assets, things like rain gardens, bioswales, stormwater ponds, and then engineered assets, which are things like living green roofs and walls and permeable pavement and cisterns.
We see more and more of those as our cities continue to grow and develop. There are 20 federally funded infrastructure projects in Canada that the government would consider green infrastructure. Some examples include 9 wastewater, sewage and treatment plants, hydroelectricity line extensions. Are these more of the projects that you would like to see funded federally?
Yes and no. I mean, certainly they're very important projects, and in some cases are moving towards being more environmentally responsible solutions. But unfortunately, what we're really seeing is that a lot of those projects are still what we would consider to be traditional infrastructure. And so we'd really like to see more of the green infrastructure funding going towards living green infrastructure projects like the type that I described.
Yeah, explain that more to me. So what would you like to see in order for this to be something that moves forward? What would you want to see from the government in terms of what projects they fund?
Yeah, so for example, talking about wastewater or stormwater, a lot of what we've seen are retrofits or improvements to existing traditional stormwater systems. And so one of the great things about living green infrastructure is that it provides a variety of uses and benefits. So traditional stormwater, you've got sewers and pipes. Living green infrastructure stormwater solutions include things like stormwater ponds, urban forests, permeable pavement, green roofs and walls, in addition to managing stormwater on site and taking the burden off of traditional infrastructure. They also provide other uses and other benefits, so carbon sequestration, improved property values, aesthetic value, and then all of the co-benefits that I mentioned.
Let's take a look at some of the promises. In terms of infrastructure-related campaign pledges that could be seen as green, this is what we've seen so far. The Liberals promising to require federal investments in public transit support, zero-emission buses and rail systems, and invest any profit from the sale of the Trans Mountain Pipe expansion into clean energy products. The NDP says they want to spend $15 billion retrofitting all federal buildings to be more energy efficient. The Green Party has pledged to direct the Canada Infrastructure Bank to invest in environmentally sustainable projects. What's missing from this list in your opinion?
Again, living green infrastructure. So those are great projects, but we'd really like to see more of a commitment towards natural living green infrastructure projects. Specifically, we advocate for 15% of infrastructure funding being directed to those types of projects, and really just recognition of the sector. So again, there's a difference between environmentally friendly or sustainable infrastructure versus green infrastructure. It's a vibrant sector, for example, here in Ontario, creates more jobs than the automotive industry, but really isn't recognized as such. So more investment and recognition of living green infrastructure as a sector unto itself that helps contribute to vibrant cities across Canada.
I think a lot of people would have lumped those two together. Good to have you here to clarify that for us. Jennifer, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for watching. If you like this, be sure to subscribe here.
And you can check out more Your Morning videos right here.